Hello, I'm Venkatesh Krishnan. I'm the head of product for integrations at AWS. Today, I'm going to talk about Amazon AppFlow and how you can use Amazon AppFlow to unlock customer insights by integrations with various SaaS applications and cloud services like Salesforce. Companies have, on an average, 28 different data sources used for generating customer insights and customer engagement. In fact, in a recent survey, only 38% of customer data management decision makers strongly agreed that they knew where their customer data was stored. They are overwhelmed by a large amount of data and a high number of tools. What customers want is for these data silos to be broken down so that they can leverage data from all their sources, the applications and the services that they are using, to draw insights that inform new product decisions, that help improve customer service and target communications with their customers. Customers also want these applications to be connected to each other so that they can exchange information and automate workflows that helps them streamline policies and decrease manual errors. The need for integrations is so ubiquitous in organizations that customers want all their teams to be empowered to build integrations on their own. They want users in lines of business like CRM administrators, BI specialists to be able to self-serve integrations, use tools so that they can build integrations on their own. And for that, they want integrations to be simple. They want the tools to be simple and not require a lot of expertise to use. Customers are also very concerned about data security and privacy. Those are very important to them. Customers want to make sure, especially in the case of integrations, that when data moves from one source to the other, to a destination, it's secure and it doesn't get exposed to the public internet. Working backwards from our customers' requirements, we built Amazon AppFlow. Amazon AppFlow is a fully managed AWS service that enables you to create bidirectional data flows between different SaaS and cloud applications and AWS services. It's a no-code tool, so it's very easy to use. You don't have to write any code to use the service. You would go in as a user into the console and configure your data flow requirements. So you would pick a source, you would pick a destination, and essentially you specify when the data should move and where should it move. Once you specify your flow requirements via configuration, AppFlow, as a fully managed service, will take on the task of orchestrating and executing your data transfers. So it will provision the compute, storage, and networking resources that are needed to execute your flows. And when the triggers happen, it will move the data on your behalf and send you notifications. AppFlow not only enables you to bring data into AWS from all these sources and use them with other AWS services, it also helps you take the data, like for example, you perform analysis and you generate insights in AWS. You want to be able to take this data back into these SaaS applications because typically they are the source of engagement. They are the system of engagement for your CRM administrators or for your sales agents. So AppFlow is built for bidirectional data transfer. So you can set up flows to bring data in from these sources, SaaS applications, cloud services, and cloud applications like Salesforce into AWS. But once you generate insights, once you combine that data with other sources and run analytics to create insights, you can take that data back and send it into Salesforce. As I mentioned earlier, data security and privacy are very important to our customers, and AWS is vigilant about our customers' security and privacy. So we work together with various SaaS application vendors like Salesforce to build a private network path so that you can transfer data between AWS services and Salesforce entirely over the private backbone of AWS. So that ensures that your data doesn't get exposed to the public internet during transit, and it minimizes attack from internet-based attack vectors. To talk a little bit more about our partnership and dive deep into the integrations that we have built with Salesforce, I welcome Courtney D'Ascenzo, Senior Director of Product Management from Salesforce.
Thanks, Venkatesh. All right, so before we get started, please make your buying decisions based on what's publicly available today and not on any of the futures I might talk about during this presentation. All right, so I wanted to take a second and talk about where we came from. So Salesforce has a strategic partnership with Amazon, and here you can see all of the various reasons why we chose Amazon as our strategic partner and for our move to public cloud. Now, what this means for you as a customer is that we can bring to market joint solutions that will directly benefit you. And one of those joint solutions that we've brought to market is called Salesforce Private Connect. So Salesforce Private Connect provides bidirectional connectivity between Salesforce first-party data centers and AWS regions. This allows for private traffic between those two entities. It also provides for enhanced security features. Not only are we encrypting the traffic, but the actual tunnel that the traffic is going through is encrypted as well. And then lastly, we've included setup experiences that allow it easy to manage, maintain, and control the life cycle of these connections. So from within setup in Salesforce, you can easily deploy or tear down or provision a private link inside of Amazon. So what does this look like? So from within Salesforce, in our first-party data centers, we've deployed a bunch of infrastructure to create a managed VPN connection between Salesforce first-party and select AWS regions. Within the AWS regions, we've also deployed managed transit VPCs. These VPCs host endpoint services, or we provision endpoints on behalf of customers in these VPCs, depending on the direction the customer is sending traffic. Customers can then connect to this managed VPC service using AWS Private Link. And that allows for us to have that private connectivity flowing from VPCs that you own as a customer through our transit VPCs that kind of act as a proxy into our VPN back into Salesforce and then down ultimately to your org. And this is a one-to-one mapping, right? So when you create an endpoint and you're sending traffic into Salesforce, that endpoint is mapped directly to your Salesforce org in a one-to-one fashion. And the same is true in the opposite direction. When you create a connection or an endpoint inside of our hosted infrastructure talking to an endpoint service that you own, that is a one-to-one mapping between that endpoint that we're deploying on your behalf to the org that it's associated with. So as a next step, I'm providing a bunch of material for you to go and learn more about this feature, as well as maybe take a trail, and then just check out the partnership. There are other products coming to market with Amazon through the partnership as well. But before we move on, I wanted to talk about, in the context of the architecture we just looked at, how AppFlow plays into this. So instead of you manually provisioning that endpoint or that endpoint service, AppFlow does it on your behalf. So AppFlow actually creates those endpoints in real time as part of the AppFlow integration and talks directly to our service and to the service that you're trying to integrate with. In addition, it's then routing that traffic through our private VPN service back to our data centers. So some of that connectivity that I talked about that is a manual process if you're not using AppFlow is abstracted away as part of a really easy to use wizard walkthrough interface that Amazon's providing as part of AppFlow. And with this, I'm going to turn it back over to Venkatesh, and he's going to walk you through how to use AppFlow in Salesforce. Thank you.
Let's now see Amazon AppFlow in action in a demo. We're going to create an integration between Salesforce and AWS. First, we will import lead records from Salesforce and bring them over as a CSV file into an Amazon S3 bucket. We are then going to enhance this data by adding lead scores. So we'll update the CSV file that I have imported from Salesforce and add a column there with lead scores. And then we are going to create a second flow in AppFlow that takes that data and sends it back into Salesforce, updating lead records there. So we're going to demonstrate data transfer in both directions by creating two flows, one that brings data from Salesforce into S3, and a second flow that takes data from S3 and sends it back to Salesforce to update existing records. You will find Amazon AppFlow under the Application Integration category in the AWS Management Console. To create our first flow, we will go and click Create Flow. We're going to give the flow a name. I'm going to call it Ingest Leads from Salesforce, and I will add a description. Next, I choose the encryption options. AppFlow will always encrypt your access tokens, your secret keys, and data in transit and rest. By default, AppFlow will use an AWS managed CMK, which is made available through the AWS KMS service. So we will create a key for you and encrypt the data if you choose the default option. But you can always bring in your own keys by selecting the checkbox below. If you have a customer managed CMK that you have already created in AWS KMS, then all you will need to do is to choose that key from the drop-down menu. With your own customer managed CMKs, you will have better control over the encryption keys and you can revoke them if needed. So all you need to do is click on that key. For this flow, you can also add tags. Tags are essentially key value pairs that help you organize and track your flows. I then click Next. The next step is to connect to Salesforce. In our first flow, we want to import all leads from Salesforce into Amazon S3. So the first thing we are going to do is to select Salesforce as the source. Now we have two options of connecting to Salesforce. One is to connect over the public internet, and the second option is to connect using AWS Private Link if your Salesforce org is Private Connect enabled. So if you choose this option, AppFlow will automatically establish a private network path and transfer data over that private network path for you. So in this demo, I'm going to create a connection to Salesforce using AWS Private Link, and I'm going to call it Private Connection to Salesforce. I'll then be redirected to the Salesforce authentication server, and it's going to go through the standard OAuth workflow in the background. So you would need to enter your username and password. In my case, I've already logged into Salesforce, so the server is asking me for permissions for allowing the embedded login app to transfer data to Salesforce. I'm going to click Allow, and in this case, it'll take me back into AppFlow and establish the connection here. I've already established the private connection to Salesforce. The next step, I'm going to choose the Salesforce object that I would like to import. I want to bring in leads from Salesforce into S3, so I choose lead. Please note that I can also choose Salesforce events. That's the second integration pattern that AppFlow enables. So if you choose Salesforce events, AppFlow will monitor for change data capture and platform events in Salesforce. When these events occur in Salesforce, AppFlow will ingest the event payload in near real time. So you can use this option for workflow automation use cases. Once you ingest the Salesforce event into Amazon S3 or any other AWS destination like EventBridge, you can trigger a Lambda downstream and create an automated workflow. In this case, I'm just going to choose Salesforce object, which is the lead object. The next step, I'm going to go and choose S3 as the destination. My destination is an S3 bucket, so I'll choose the S3 bucket where I want to deposit the lead data. Please note that the S3 bucket has to be in the same region where you're setting up the flow. You also have additional options of configuring your S3 bucket. So, for example, if you would like to bring it in a certain format, CSV in this case, that's an option. If you want to aggregate all the records and put them in one file, that's yet another option that is available to you. You also have the option of adding a timestamp to the file name, and you can place the file in a folder based on the granularity of the timestamp you choose. So you have all these options of configuring how the data will be deposited in the S3 bucket. Now there are three trigger options that are available. If you had chosen Salesforce event as the object earlier, then the flow would have been triggered by an event. Since we selected Salesforce objects, we have the option of running the flow on a schedule. When you run the flow on a schedule, you can set it to run every 5 minutes. You can go down to a granularity of 1 minute so that the flow runs every minute. The default option here is to transfer incremental records, which means that every time the flow runs, it will look for what has changed or what's been added since the last time and only bring new or changed records over from Salesforce into S3. You can choose the timestamp field that should be used to determine what has changed. For example, you may want to bring only newly created records, right? So in this case, you will choose created date as the field that we will use in order to bring new records over from Salesforce into S3. The other option would be to use bring all records, like including ones that were modified since the last time the flow ran. And so you may want to choose the sysmod timestamp field in this case. So these are different options that are available. Since I want to show you this demo, I'm going to select the run on demand option. So as soon as the flow execution is done, flow creation is done, I'll be able to click run, and that will instantaneously transfer the data from Salesforce into S3. So I'm going to click run on demand and then click next. The next step is to map fields from Salesforce to the fields that you want in your CSV file in S3. So you can either map the fields manually, or you can choose to upload a .csv file with the field mapping. In this case, I'm going to map the fields manually. I'm going to bring in all fields from Salesforce into S3, so I select the map all fields directly option. You can transform fields in this process. Let's say, for example, you want to combine the last name and first name into a field that you want to call full name. So all you do is select the two fields and add a formula there. So I'm going to click the two fields and say I'm going to concatenate them, and I'm going to call the destination field as full name. And a new field will be created in the CSV file that concatenates the two and creates full name field. I can also mask certain records. For example, if I have sensitive information in the title and I want to mask it so that I don't bring all values, I can just go in there and I can mask a certain number of characters. In this case, I'm going to mask the 3 characters in the title. You can choose how many ever you want, and that will add a masking operation to that field before it's brought into S3. In the next step, I can add filters. Filters enable you to limit which records you're bringing in from Salesforce. So in this case, I'm going to say, don't bring all the records, just bring records that were created before September 1st. I can also add a second filter that says, don't bring all the leads, bring only leads that have not been converted. So I'm going to add 2 filters. The second one is on the leads. I want only to score those leads that have not yet been converted. So I'm going to say, bring in only those leads where the is converted field is false. And that's it. You click next, it's done. It's just that simple. It takes a few clicks. The setup is done. And once your flow has been successfully created, you can run the flow. And since this is a flow that I set up to run on demand, I just click the run flow button, and that will initiate the transfer of records from Salesforce into S3. Let's wait for the execution to complete. It takes a few seconds. And you will see that AppFlow has brought in 17 records from Salesforce into S3. So you can click on the link there, and it takes you to the S3 bucket. You can download the file, and I'm going to click on it, and you're going to see the file here. We brought that in as a CSV file, and so I'll download it as a CSV. And there you go. Now I'm going to add lead scores. So these are the records I imported. I'm going to go into the lead scores field. It's all null right now, it's empty. So I'm going to go add lead scores that I can take back into Salesforce and update the records there. So maybe you have a lead scoring algorithm that you built using machine learning that uses data from other sources. So you can go in there and essentially populate the lead scores. So I'm going to do that now. There you go. I populated lead scores. That's great. Now I'm going to create a second flow that picks up these leads and sends them back into Salesforce. So I go back into AppFlow and I'll create a second flow. But in the meanwhile, I want to show you this is Salesforce, and you can see that the lead score fields is all empty. Now I go into AppFlow and create a new flow. But before I do that, I have to upload the CSV file into an S3 bucket. So I go into a folder that I've created in S3. It's called Scored Leads, and I'm uploading the CSV file there. It's been successfully uploaded. And in the second flow that I create, I will point to this S3 bucket so that AppFlow can pick up the data there. So this is the second flow I'm creating. So I'm going to call it Update Salesforce with Lead Scores. That's the new flow name that I've created. I enter a description. Okay, now I'm going to pick S3 as the source. I pick the bucket where I put the CSV file. And I'm also going to provide the specific folder in which the CSV file is located. So I'm going to copy, paste, scored leads, the name into the field here. Next, my destination is Salesforce. In this case, I'm just going to use the connection that I already created. So I created a private connection earlier. I'm just going to use that connection. Once you create a connection, you can use it across as many flows as you want. I'm going to choose the lead object because that's the object in Salesforce that I'm going to update. I have two error handling options. So just in case AppFlow is not able to update some of the records into Salesforce, you can put it into a S3 bucket and then investigate that further. So you can enter an S3 bucket optionally, where all the records that we could not insert, for some reason we are not able to insert it, those records get dumped into that S3 bucket. I'm just going to run this flow on demand, but as with previous flow that I showed, you can set it to run on a schedule. When you run it on a schedule, every time you add a new CSV file into that S3 folder, AppFlow will go check for that new file, and it will essentially pick up new records from that file and update records in Salesforce. I'll click Next. Now in the next step, what I'm going to do is to say that I want to update existing records first, but then I need to specify how AppFlow should match the records in Salesforce with the entries in the CSV file so that a Salesforce record is updated with the corresponding lead score. So I specify the ID field in the CSV. I specify that the ID field in the CSV file has to be matched up to the lead ID in Salesforce. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. So I'm selecting, I've selected those, and then I'm mapping the rest of the fields. So I'm going to map the lead scores from the CSV file to the lead scores field in Salesforce. So that mapping is done. And that's pretty much it. I hit Next. I'm not going to add any filters, so I'm clicking Next again. Once the flow is successfully created, I can run the flow on demand, and this should take the data from the CSV file and update records in Salesforce. So let's wait for a few seconds for this flow to be executed. So now you can see that we updated 17 records in Salesforce with the data from the CSV file. Let me refresh the Salesforce lead screen, and you will see that the new lead scores have been successfully added. And that's the demo. Thank you. So in summary, Amazon AppFlow is a fully managed AWS service that enables you to transfer data privately between various SaaS applications and AWS services, including Salesforce. AppFlow automatically sets up the private link endpoints, connects to these SaaS applications, cloud applications, and transfers data entirely over the private network. You don't have to create these endpoints or manage them on your own. We take care of it for you. Your data is always encrypted at rest and in transit, and you have the option of bringing your own encryption key. So AppFlow ensures that your data is securely transferred. You can transfer millions of records per flow run, and there's no need for you to manage or provision the infrastructure on your own. And it's an easy to use service. It's a no-code tool that anyone can use to build integrations between different SaaS applications and AWS services. To get started, I would welcome you to visit our Getting Started page. It has several demo videos and blogs that can be a good resource for you in creating your first flow. Thank you so much.